Everyone. My name is Carol Skillen. I'm one of the board members, whatever, of the Ottawa branch for National Association of Federal Retirees. Before we begin, I'd like to recognize that the Ottawa branch is located on the unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. We extend our respect to all First Nations, Inuit and Métis people for their valuable past, present, and future contributions to this land and our country. On behalf of the branch, I'm pleased to welcome you to today's webinar, which is titled Designing Independence, Home Renovations for Aging in Place. I'd like to give a warm welcome to our presenters today, Sean and Kyla MacGinnis from BuildAble, not BuildAble, but BuildAble, Canada's only nurse-led accessibility contractor. Kyla and Sean are here today to talk about design solutions, available tax credits, practical strategies, and more to give you all the information you need on home renovations for aging in place. I want to give a special welcome to anybody here who is not yet a member of the association. We hope that these webinars will inspire you to join us. And to our members, we hope that these webinars will encourage you to maintain your membership, because with you guys, we are ever stronger for all the advocacy actions that we take. If you have any questions for Kyla and Sean, please type them in the Q&A box, not the chat box, because I will ignore that one, but the Q&A box, which is the one I will look at. And then we'll look at those questions at the end of the presentation. And if there are any that we cannot get to, we will pass them along to Sean and Kyla so that they can provide responses, and we will get back to you. So that's it for me. I'll pass it over to our presenters. There you go, guys. Fill your boots.
Thank you so much, Carol, and thank you for having us here today. We're really excited to be a part of this discussion on how to safely age in place, designing for independence, and I'll jump right into my presentation. And of course, always, yes, please ask as many questions as you want. We were asked if we could even stay a bit later if necessary, and of course, we absolutely can, and we'll be around. Okay, so I'm Kyla. As Carol mentioned, this is Sean, my husband, and we've been doing this, working with BuildAble, bringing it to life since 2013. So we were just joking before we hopped on here that, yes, we've been working very closely together and have still stayed married somehow. So that's an achievement in itself. It's very spicy around here some days. So BuildAble, Renovations for Inspired Living. We do both custom home renovations, so anything you can think of, but our real focus has always been on accessibility, so universal design. And while we do whatever you can dream of, we can bring your vision to life in any aspect of your home, we do have a team that's specifically dedicated just to accessibility, and this is where the nurse management comes in. And what that really comes down to is just thoughtful design. So regardless of the type of renovation you need or want to plan, having that extra thinking through of how a project can look in the long term really makes a huge difference. Now, the F word. I'm sure you've all heard this many times. We're talking about falls. So a big part of what we do, the crux of what we do, is really around fall prevention. And as federal employees in the past, I know statistics is probably a big part of wherever you worked. And this information comes from PHAC or FAC. So falls are the #1 cause of injuries, but not only in seniors, across all age groups. The difference is that as we age, those falls become much more serious. We're not as malleable as we once were if we fell out of a tree as a kid. If we slip on ice as older adults, we have potential to break bones. And one of those bigger concerns is especially around hips. So statistics are showing that up to 30% of seniors will experience a fall, at least one fall each year. If you fall once, you're more likely to fall again. And of those seniors who do experience this fall, almost 20% will die within 1 year. So this is a really significant issue. So when we talk about our renovations, it's not just about making a beautiful space in your home, which we can do, but we want to keep people independent and safe and healthy and alive and loving their home for as long as possible. And these stats are all something everyone knows, I think, by this point, and they're not to be fear-mongering in any way, but knowledge is power. So it's really important that we think ahead proactively. And as I mentioned, so when we talk about falls, this is all ages. I don't know if as Canadians we're clumsy people, but that's what's taking every age group into the hospital. So it's not just seniors that we work with. There are typically 4 pillars of fall prevention. That's a big focus for keeping people upright and healthy. So these all go hand in hand together, because we can make your house as beautiful and as safe as possible, but you do need these other things in check. So just a quick touch on this, because I can't help it as a nurse. Exercise and nutrition is absolutely critical. So there are many free services that you can get out to with better strength, better balance through things like Ottawa Public Health, and having good nutrition as well. So proteins and healthy food that can maintain those muscles and bone density. Another one is having medications checked. So typically if we're on 4 or more medications, this is considered something called polypharmacy. And the way they can interact together can actually put us at risk for falls. Now, again, this isn't just for seniors. I openly talk about how I live with unfortunately, multiple autoimmune diseases. So I am absolutely in the polypharmacy category to maintain my health. And so what I do every now and then, I sit down with my pharmacist, and it's a free review that they can look at all your medications, and the over-the-counter ones are just as critical. Vitamins can impact prescription meds. And you go through that and you make sure there's no interactions. Getting your vision checked, because this can impact depth perception. So this is a big concern, of course, around stairs. And then, of course, home modifications, the 4th pillar. So modifications or renos for safety and independence. And this is where we come in. This is BuildAble's work. So again, as I mentioned, we work in any aspect of your home. Accessible bathrooms are probably our biggest request, but we cover everything: kitchens, ramps, steps, the quick shower conversions that are done in just a couple days, and residential elevators, home additions, you name it. And a big focus for us is that we can do it without compromising on style. And that reduces stigma for a lot of people who want to have accessible modifications but think it might look like a hospital. It doesn't have to. They can be really beautiful. And so we'll dive into that a bit too. So I just thought I'd start with a client story that we have permission to share. So we heard from this family where a partner had a injury on the spine, a cyst on the spine. It was an emergency situation, and it unfortunately resulted in quadriplegia, which means sort of from the neck down, you're not going to have much, or if any, movement. So he was in intense rehab immediately. And the plan was to stay in this beautiful home that was in Westboro. And one of the big aspects of this is that many times when people go through an injury, or as they're starting to age in place, they think about moving themselves into one area of the home, like a living room, and cutting off the rest of the house. Oh, we can just move into the living room, this will be fine. And this is something we actually encourage people not to do. As you know, we work so hard for our homes, and you should enjoy every aspect of your home if that's possible. So in this case, we installed an elevator. So he's still in the hospital right now, and we're trying to do these renovations so he can come home to a safe and beautiful space. So you can see it starts in the garage, and this is something we think through, that thoughtful design. So he can pull into the garage, get out, not shoveling any snow, and this gives him full access to his 4-story, is it 4-story, I believe, or 3-story home? I'm trying to remember now. And the other aspect of this is that this goes right through the middle of the home. We're not hiding the elevator. This can be part of the design and also the inclusion of people in your home. So in this case, the younger is not, I would say 50s, get up. He can go right through into his house and get out this elevator at the same spot as kids are coming down the stairs. So you're kind of including everyone in this process together and not hiding away some of these accessible features. So Sean, you can jump in here just to touch on this build.
Absolutely. This was one of my favorite projects and favorite clients that we've worked for before. So as you can see from some of the photos where we have our before picture, that was actually their front closet. And then you see the before and during photos. So you can see the size of the hoistway. We had to cut a 7 foot by 7 foot hole in the house. So there's a couple of aspects to this. We obviously have to make it suitable for the elevator to be installed, but and plumb. But at the same time, we got to plan a spot that we aren't taking away from things in the house. We can meet some of those social aspects that Kyla had explained, and we want it to look really, really good. So there's a ton of structural work that was involved in planning. This is kind of one of the ones that people underestimate, is the amount of planning that needs to go into something like this. But when it's well planned, it's worth every minute of time that was spent on it, just because the finished product is going to be something that's going to be tailored to you or to the person using it, and the project itself is going to go much smoother when you have that plan together.
So as part of this complete renovation, we also created a fully barrier-free bathroom. So coming home, we know that as part of the ensuite, we need to get in and up the house and throughout, as well as having a safe spot to have a shower and go to the bathroom. So these are probably the two areas where we focus on most. It's the places where the most serious falls can happen, but also where it impacts how we use our home and maintaining sort of that dignity and pride when we're on our own in the bathroom. So as we were building this out custom for this client, Sean had regular calls. It was Zoom calls we would have to meet with the whole family, with him in the hospital. And as we were working through this renovation, he started through rehab. We could see that he was getting a little bit of movement in his hand, which was exciting. So we don't always have full success after being in rehabilitation, after an injury like this, but we always plan for the best case scenario. So in this case, we thought, okay, he's starting to get a little bit of movement back. As you can see, if someone lives with quadriplegia, you're not going to need grab bars to transfer yourself, but we did have one at the front entrance in case a caregiver was coming in to provide extra support, which can help someone to come up and down if they're helping someone shower. But for him, we thought before tiling this all in, we would put blocking behind the walls. And the important piece of this is that this provides a basis to install grab bars or other supports or built-in benches after the fact. So sometimes we hear, oh, I'm not ready for that. That's a common thing we hear. I'm just not there yet. And as I mentioned, just going back a little bit, because this happens at all ages, that's kind of it's not the best way to approach things, because if we do proper planning in the long term, you can add these things down the road. So Sean, you can talk about blocking here if you don't mind, so people can understand what's happening and why it looks like this.
Absolutely. I mean, when we have the opportunity to add in support for the grab bars or any assistive devices to be installed, we want to do it. In this case, we're renovating a shower, which meant we had to pull the walls down. So it was a great time for us to put in some wooden blocking. As Kyla mentioned, we weren't sure what the final prognosis was going to be of the person that we were working for. So we were hoping for the best. So we made sure that we had something there. And in the end, he did end up needing it, which is awesome. But we don't want to do something that's more robust than, say, a lot of people say, well, you put some plywood up in your shower. But we like to go bigger than that. We like to go at least 1.5 inches up to 3 inches of blocking, just depending on what we're putting on. So if it's something that extends out from the wall, well, obviously the further out from the wall we go, we want to make sure we've got enough, because it's going to have a ton of leverage to it. So that will sometimes even mean if you're in a condo, reinforcing the studs So we want that wall to come down if it means it's going to fail. There's no way that we want that to ever lose a grab bar or have something come out by accident. So we basically integrate it into the entire wall. When we don't have this option, there are some options. There's some great anchors that are out there. It's not your blue plugs that you see for hanging pictures or anything like that. They're made for this specific case. So when we don't have the opportunity to do this, we can, or if something was missed or something really improves in someone's health, or just you have a finished shower and decide that you needed to add some grab bars, we can do it too without having this blocking. It's just when we have the opportunity, we want to make sure we do.
And the best part about this, I know Sean said we were able to have them afterwards, is we were at an event and he came wheeling up, fully self-propelled. His rehab was amazing, and he's still continuing to see some gains. So always excited. We do end up becoming pretty close with our clients through some of these renovations. So I'm going to touch on one more here. So a gentleman, late 40s, early 50s, was hit by a truck, and we have permission to share the story, just saying that. So he was recovering after rehab. He went to a retirement home, despite being younger and not retired, just to do some more extra rehab as we were working through his home. So we installed a VPL, which is called a vertical platform lift. And as you can see, this is just a rough install in someone's garage. And these are things that we want to talk about too. So if you need to get up a level to get into your house, there's obviously lots of options for ramps and different lifts, but we also want to think about our lovely weather where we may have a ton of snow to shovel. So sometimes putting things in the garage like this really it's clutch in terms of maintenance and ease of getting in and out. So again, this is called a vertical platform lift. It goes up it doesn't go up super high, but enough to get someone into a different level. And then we also worked with his occupational therapist, who was working with him in the retirement home while he was waiting to come back, to set up grab bars and supports in the specific place and measurements that were going to work for him to be able to transfer, which means moving your body either into the shower or on and off a toilet. And with this gentleman, who's a single man, he wanted to keep a certain aesthetic. So we also try to keep things very similar if someone wants to have that specific style. So this was how he wanted his bathroom to look, but it also became a much more functional space. So as you can see here, it doesn't look like much going on, but there's so much thought that's put into almost every inch of a bathroom or space that we work in. So zero threshold, meaning there's no lips, nothing there. There's a little rubber barrier that some places have. The slope of the base goes towards the drain. It's very minimal, so you don't feel it, but it's enough for water to be, for gravity to do its work to pull the water to the drain. And then there's tons of grab bars and thermostatic control. So if there's issues, not just for this gentleman, but if there's issues with your hands or grip, especially with rheumatoid arthritis or Parkinson's, you can have set temperatures so someone doesn't accidentally scald themselves. And of course, the roll under vanity. So this was wonderful as well. We were all crying. He came in and we watched him roll under the sink, which he couldn't do at the retirement home. Surprisingly enough, a lot of retirement homes are not accessible. So he was tilted to the side trying to, brush his teeth in the sink, but couldn't roll under. So he was crying, we were all crying. He comes home to an accessible space, and it's a place that he could use and love and still feels familiar. And the other aspect was his kitchen. So we tried to keep the aesthetic and the boxes all the same wood feeling, but he also now has a place to roll under to use the stove, pullouts, and pull-out cabinetry. And just again, this thoughtful design to make sure it can all work perfectly for him.
One of the other big aspects, and sorry to interrupt you, Kyla, that we had to think about in this project is that there was people of multiple abilities in his house. He was living with his brother and family. So we didn't want to have everything down too low for them. So we had to think about their body mechanics as well. So that's why you see sort of different heights of surfaces throughout the kitchen. It's so that everybody can use it. We want to make sure that the The big ones are covered, like so he can cook safely and use the sink independently. But at the same time, we want to make sure we're thinking of everybody else as well. So it's a little bit of a fine line, a balance to follow, but that is one of the things that we want to think about.
Oh, I'm so glad you added that on. Thank you, Sean. Because outside of this picture, there's also an island that's in there that has a standard height, but then we put in like a bar level as well. So multiple people could use it if they come in with using a wheelchair, or you need to stay seated, but also for those who are standing that were in the house as well. So it's a great point. It's always, again, back to that thoughtful design. Who's using the space? Who's going to be around? Sometimes it's grandkids are visiting, right? And we need to make sure there's still space for them to be cared for. So this is something that we've developed over time. That's sort of our hierarchy of accessible design and planning. So where we start, we want to think about safety first, above all. So these are your immediate and basic safety needs. Has there been an injury? Has there been a significant illness? So thinking about how you will get into your house, not navigating stairs and not a caregiver carrying you in or upstairs, which we've seen, and it's very scary. And we don't want anyone going to the hospital or back, especially if they've just been discharged. So that very front line, safety first. Our next level we want to be thinking about is your independence, or someone else in your home's independence, and how you function in your house. So we want to enhance that, and we use this very person-centered approach and family-centered approach that will hopefully have this inclusive type of design where the home starts to work for you, and you're not trying to just slap some things on with extra supports here and there. It should really all fit together to improve your health. And then when we get to the top, we want to think about that personalization. So we're thinking about your lifestyle, your family, all those psychosocial needs. Is anyone coming in to visit with mobility needs? Do you have young kids that still need to have a bath? These are these little things where we think through the entire family, and the entire design process always results in improved outcomes for everyone. We want things to be pretty, right? And I think that's a really great, it was a great start for us, because when we started, sorry, had too much coffee and I'm just ready to excitedly tell you everything. When we first started, we honestly thought it would be almost all seniors or elderly that we'd be working with, but on a big portion of who we design and create these renovations for are much younger. And so design and style is really important. We don't want our homes to look like a hospital. They need to function, but they also need to be beautiful and represent our style as well. So finding that merger between all of that is really key to what we've been doing. So when we think about where do we start? Okay, I'm on this webinar, I'm listening, I'm interested in knowing how to plan for aging in place. The first thing you want to think about is how you're going to get in and out of your home safely, and then getting up and down different levels within your home if there's multiple stories. So there are multiple options. There are beautiful ramps that can be done, custom wood ramps, or there's some that could be landscaped with concrete and beautiful rocks that can look like it's actually part of your house and designed beautifully, or integrated with a deck. One thing to consider also, again, is back to that snow. So is there someone who's going to be clearing this for you? We'll be using one of the snow clearing programs, someone in the neighborhood, or do we need to build a cover for the ramp, or can we put it in a garage? These are all the things we want to work through. Again, one of these VPLs, vertical platform lifts. So you can see they only go up a couple of feet, but just enough to get you up some of those higher levels quickly. And especially if you're losing strength in your upper body, or if you are using a wheelchair, this is a great option. And then the elevators, again, that we talked about before, perfect for getting in and out of and throughout your house, especially if you have multiple stories. And it can make such a difference in the long term, and also really great for resale and outside as well. So in this case, you can see in some of these pictures, there's a space that goes down to the water, which is beautiful. Fortunately, we could not put a stair lift or an elevator that goes all the way down to the water. But we did at least have the ability to put in a handrail, like one of the longest handrails we've ever created, along with this stonework that was a little safer than some pretty rickety stairs that were there before. So accessibility, just to be clear, can look different for everyone too, right? It might be just having a railing with stairs. It's not necessarily all designed for someone using a wheelchair. Universal design is something that works for everyone. And it has to work for you. It's your renovation.
This is one of the things, again, I'm sorry to interrupt, Kyla, but this is one of the things that is very often overlooked. We can do all sorts of great work inside your home, but if you're not getting in and out safely, or if it becomes impossible to get in and out, it's not worth doing any of the work inside your home. And again, it could be something as simple as just adding handrails, but having a good look and plan for getting in and out of the house, especially in the winter safely, is worth its weight in gold. We often will look and say, okay, if somebody has a covered garage, that's a great place to start. It can be something as simple as just a couple of new steps that are just easier to navigate than what is existing. But if you guys are having a look around your house today, certainly I encourage you to have a look outside and look at what the entrance to your house looks like, and please feel free to call us if you have any thoughts or questions about what could be done.
Sorry, just you cut out a bit there. I just hope everyone could hear the end of that. Yeah, which is great too, because we also know that as we get older, if we're nervous to get out of our house, we could become a little more isolated during the winter months. And isolation, we know, has direct health impacts. So it's really important, as Sean mentioned, thinking about getting in and out. And then the second place, the bathroom. So again, we do all the renovations, every aspect of your house, but these are the two areas that we tend to focus on to begin, and ones that we would recommend. So in this case, again, it was a family with mixed abilities. So there was a veteran, and she needed a barrier-free shower to get in. There was big balance issues. So you can see there's a 0 threshold shower here. And if you're wondering, like, oh, how does the water work? There's a little tiny rubber barrier. And at the top, you can see we put in a custom ceiling mounted rod. So you can pull a curtain across if needed. But it's not, we're not trying to line stuff up with, traction bars or anything. Here, these things can be done and then kept out of the way with a weighted curtain. And as well, there's bars throughout this space. So that towel holder there is also a grab bar that supports up to 500 pounds. So there are beautiful safety features now, like grab bars and other supports that don't actually look like mobility aids or accessibility aids. And they're multifunctional and luxury and absolutely stunning. And you would never know that they were actually grab bars. So again, just coming back to this to show, it looks like a regular bathroom. There's a bar, but there's so much thought, again, that gets put into all of this. So right down to the type of controls that you would need, setting up the entire center console with someone's height, 0 thresholds, compliant benches, you name it. So these are the things that we want to think through. And in terms of aging in place, again, going back to this thought that it's going to look like a hospital or it's not going to be good for resale, it is completely opposite. We have a very fast growing older population, and we have so many people in Canada living with disabilities that are desperately looking for homes that actually have these features. So this, in terms of, it's a question we often get, the resale value is in high demand for these types of renovations once they're installed. So you can see here, we've taken out a tub that was really hard to get in and out of. We always suggest if you can go to this level, go for a 0 threshold, because it is going to be better for everyone in here. We have a flip down bench. And once again, you can see all the different features that are added here that you may not really notice at first glance. And then in this case, you can sometimes see floating vanities is something to consider. Those mirrors both also tilt down. So if someone does end up using a perch seat, So which would be a little seat we could put there where feet would fit under, which is really helpful. And especially for people living with Parkinson's, to have a perch seat and a spot for your feet is really helpful, because then you can lean your elbows on the vanity itself to maintain some of that self-care where you're doing it yourself independently. And it's beautiful. I love this bathroom. So in terms of what we do, why is it that we do what we do? So we are the only nurse-led construction company in Canada. And what that means is that we are looking not just at your space that you want to renovate, we're looking at you and your family, and we're designing for that. We have a better understanding about lifespan aging. We also work with a lot of children through CHIO and how that progresses for someone in their home, mobility, disability, and disease progression. So for someone living with MS, depending on the type, we may be able to put things in advance, just like we talked about with the blocking for the grab bars. And as things progress with a certain disease, we can add those things in later if you're just not ready. But at least we're going to know that this is how this disease may progress, and this is what we can do to plan for that. Always thinking a best case scenario, of course, and we've seen it, which is great. But that's really one of those advantages. And so if you also have an occupational therapist, or if you happen to end up in the hospital, we never want this to happen, but it does. We do partner with your health team. So if there's someone in the hospital that is working with you as an OT or a social worker, we would work directly with them to make some plans. And if we can, we do our best to get these things done before you come home. In terms of accessibility experts and advocates, we run specialized in-services, and ongoing training for our team. So for our carpenters, laborers, and renovators, we have in-services that talk about different diseases and disabilities. We have full, very lively discussions on what we've seen work for someone, what hasn't. I bring nursing students in to provide presentations to our team. So over the time, when someone's in your home, our lead carpenter is really well versed in some of this stuff too, which makes a big difference when you're working together. We do a lot of advocacy work as well. We've been involved in many efforts to try and change the building code. We need safer spaces, and especially with new development. We've been on the Hill looking for different government funding structures, especially with the Canadian Disability Benefit. And we do a lot around disability, ableism, and ageism education as well, and run some events around this. So this is really truly part of our blood that we love. And we never sub out our renovations. So this is really key. So, I mean, if you can work with whoever you want, obviously. So I'm hoping that all of this information actually just gives you a basis for some background on what you should be planning if you are going to take on one of these renovations, especially around the blocking, if you're pulling everything out, leaning towards the zero thresholds, things like that. But there are companies that will come and meet with you, and then they sub it out to someone that may not have that background information. So that's something you want to check when you hire a contractor. Is it an in-house team? Who are you going to be working with? Are you going to have that control? The only thing that we do work with externally is our certified pro trades like electricians and plumbing. But we have two that we basically have going full-time that work with us directly. And then, of course, engineering or architects, depending on the scope of your project. Do you have anything to add to that, Sean, before I move on?
No, I think you've done a great job.
Okay, sorry. I get really excited and I can talk about all of this for so long. But again, coming back to this, so you are going to have your own unique style. So regardless of aging in place, if you've ever taken on a renovation in your life, you want it to meet your personal style. And we are very big advocates for this as well. You want to love your space. So you may have unique health needs that we can work with, but we also want to work with your unique style. So we see kitchens here with different tiles, these different beachy themes. We have full covered decks with integrated hot tubs that also have a ramp so someone can get out to their yard. Or maybe you want a pink bathroom with rose gold grab bars. These things are all available to us now, which is really amazing. And it makes me really excited about how beautiful things can really be while maintaining safety and preventing hospitalizations. Just while we're on this note too, I just want to mention that I'm losing my train of thought here. Sorry, I get getting all excited. If you want to start in a certain aspect of your home, and you're thinking about the stairs, you're thinking about going outside, you're thinking about going up and down, or you're thinking about your bathrooms or kitchen, as you look around your house after this or today, just have a sit back and think about, okay, if I were to end up using a mobility device, whether that be a cane, a walker, if there was it might be a broken leg, your granddaughter's coming in with a stroller, how would they navigate your house and how would they use it? How would you get into your bathroom? Many houses have sort of the tub shower combinations, which are, very slippy. And where we hear a lot of ambulances being called when someone slips out of getting out of the tub, they often reach for a towel bar that isn't actually properly drilled in, and it comes out with them. So just thinking about how you use your space after this webinar, and that will also start to help you sort of formulate where you might want to consider starting with your renovations. So there are also some great tax credits. My federal employees and retirees, you should absolutely take advantage of these. Maybe you were involved in creating them. The home accessibility tax credit is for anyone who's eligible for the disability tax credit, so the DTC, or if you're over 65 years of age. So based on if you have an eligible home, the annual limit is about $20,000, and these are filed with your taxes, and you can get a credit of up to $3,000. And this is an annual thing that you can file. If you are eligible for the DTC, or if you have medical expenses, you can also claim some of these items on these forms. And you can actually triple dip on these three. So the home accessibility tax credit, the disability tax credit, and the medical equipment tax credits are all something that you can claim together, which is wonderful. A new one that has come out is a multi-generational home tax credit, which is great because with the cost of housing, it can be a challenge for many people, and a lot of individuals are either bringing their parents in with them or bringing their kids back with them. So you can renovate an eligible dwelling and create a secondary unit, and coach houses, I believe, apply for this. And again, the only real major qualifications is being over 65, or also again being qualified for the DTC. So this is a larger credit, up to $50,000. And again, you would claim that on your taxes, and you're eligible for a refund of about $7,500, which is nice. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of other funding in terms of accessible modifications unless you go through an organization that may be specific to a disease or disability that you're living with. So going back to some of the work that we do around advocacy on the Hill with some of our MPs, we do talk a lot about having funding and supports for people to do more of these accessible renovations. We feel that it is a health issue, it is a healthcare issue, and it keeps people at home longer where we want to be and keeps people healthier. So we'll continue to advocate for that, but in the meantime, these are some that you should definitely take advantage of. So are we doing okay for time? Yeah, I know I was talking really fast. So key messages from us to take home. Falls, injuries, illness, disability, all of these things happen at every age. So I think there's a lot of stigma around, seniors aging in place or doing renovations for accessibility. And again, we often hear this is, I'm not there yet. Well, none of us want to be living with a disability or illness. But if we're lucky enough to be aging and aging well, we can do some proactive things that will keep us healthy for even longer. So living the lives that we want to live, seeing our families, seeing our kids and grandkids. So being not there yet, where are you? You know, we need to start from that proactive place and knowing that universal design really is better for everyone in every age. Scrap the living room plan. So I know many people will suggest this, including some in the hospital will say, you know, when the time comes, you can just move into your living room, but you deserve to use your entire home. And there are things now that can help you use your entire home. So start planning for that as well, as opposed to just, you know, cutting off an entire aspect of the place that you love. When it comes to us and people ask us, is it general renovation or accessible renovations? It really just comes down to thoughtful design. So as Sean mentioned before, we want to consider not just you primarily, but your family's needs. Who's coming to visit? What is your life like on a day-to-day? Do you have any dogs that need to get up the stairs as well? And then we also talk about your preferences. What's your style? What are your wants? And hopefully working towards a home that works for you and you're not overcoming your home like it's a challenge. It should be a comfortable place where you can move around with ease and happiness. And as you can see from some of the images that we shared, or at least we feel they're beautiful, but they can look gorgeous and they do look gorgeous. So you don't have to limit yourself to this perception that accessible design or aging in place has to look like a hospital, because it absolutely doesn't. And lastly, I would say to start planning now. Do that look around your house. Start thinking about how this can impact the longevity of where you want to grow or age in place. And once you start doing those plans and it all starts to come together, we can proactively take that on and work with you to make that vision come to life. So yes, those are my key messages. Sean, I don't know if you have anything to add. I'm the chatterbox here in the in the business. And I have
you got a lot of the points, but if I was to reinforce any points that you had already brought up, Kyla, it would be planning. A lot of 65, 70-year-old retirees are running circles around me. So you might be great today, but anything can change in the future, and that includes to me, to you. So certainly starting that planning now, as Kyla had mentioned, is the best way to go. And that could just be budgeting and having an expert in to have a look at the space and just having some ideas of some of the projects that could come up. So we want to be thinking about how we're getting in and out of the house. And then usually the first one is how are we going to use the rest of the house? Will it be bathrooms or doorways? I mean, most people, not most people, but a lot of people don't end up using a wheelchair. So we don't always have to be planning for a wheelchair, but certainly want to be planning if you have a health change, that make sure that we have the space to be able to do that. And again, after that, it would just be budgeting and making sure that you again, with a comprehensive plan, you can tackle your future needs.
So we are affiliated with some of these organizations. We love what we do. We are a small team. We have some amazing lead carpenters that also just really care about what we do. We love animals. As you can see, we have our someone's house, a little cat apprentice here. But we're family run, we're local in Ottawa. And we actually we really care about what we're putting together for someone. So if we can help you in any way, or if you just have questions, we're here. So use us, and yeah, please ask any questions. And I think Carol's gonna jump on and share if there's anything in the Q&A, and we'll answer to the best of our abilities. Thanks a lot for listening and for having us. Listen to me ramble on. We get excited about these things, clearly.
It's always good if you have passion about your work, because then you will continue to do it. So
that's true. That's true. Thank you.
I stopped having passion for my work. Okay, so there are a few questions, and surprisingly enough, all they're about cost. So, yeah. So I will run through them. The first one was they wanted, so cost for the example you showed. So I asked them, were you talking about the bathroom or the elevator? Because I didn't notice when it popped up. So I realize that when you're doing a renovation, that the cost involves trying to figure out, well, how much plumbing do I have? How much electrical? How much da, 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 da. We're going through renovation right now.
And you're not using us?
No, it's not an accessible
I'm joking.
renovation.
I'm joking.
Not yet.
And we
I
do general
places,
renovations just
but I'm
to,
not
yeah.
So they're just kind of getting for the examples that you showed, say for the bathroom or the kitchen. Let's go with the kitchen because they're usually a little pricier. How much was one of those kitchen renovations that you did?
That's a great question, and obviously cost is always the first thing that comes up, which is makes total sense when you're planning a renovation. You want to have the best outline as you can. So kitchen, although I'll try to keep it a simplified answer, although it can be a bit complicated, so I'll try to keep it simplified. But it really comes down to what type of cabinet, the size of the kitchen, and the amount of work required. So if we're going to keep the existing footprint of a kitchen, it's obviously going to be less work. We're not moving walls. So I would say on average, a kitchen would be anywhere between sort of 40 to 60,000. It certainly can go upwards up to 90 to $100,000 to do a kitchen upgrade quite quickly, or further than that. So it really just depends on the extent of the renovation, but a basic kitchen renovation is generally between 40 and 60,000. The cabinets are often sort of half of that expense. The cabinets and countertops, because when you think about changing the kitchen, you're usually thinking about changing all your appliances, your faucets, and your dishwasher, obviously, and your sink. So things do start to creep up. But simple answer, probably about 60,000, I would say, would be a safe number to start budgeting for.
Okay. Yeah, I can agree with that, having just done it. Okay, so how you already actually answered this particular question, how the renovation paid for they all are great, but they look expensive, for example, March Dimes grants. And you've mentioned that unfortunately, other than tax credits, there's really nothing out there unless you go to the specific association that you are, well, to put it very badly, a member of. So yes, and then follow-up question further down was your advocacy that you're doing, that you're trying to go and get these mentioned. So you are doing your best to try to get these grants and everything for people.
Oh yeah, we are. Sorry, go ahead, Sean.
No, it goes on both sides. That we try to make change within the government to fund more programs. Provincially, Ontario is probably one of the worst provinces where we're located. Is one of the worst provinces in terms of what's available for tax credits and grants. And then the other side of it is we'll do our best to give you any supporting documents if you are looking for a tax credit or a grant, to make sure you have those documents to be able to be eligible for them. So if it's something in advance, we can do something very high level. And at the end, obviously, we'll give very detailed descriptions and when payments were made and things like that. So any supporting documents you need for it will help out with.
Perfect.
I wish we were publicly funded. That would be, that would be the dream, or accessible renovations. But at least in the meantime, a lot of the federal ones are for people that are over 65. So there's at least something in the meantime.
Yeah. So somebody said, I know I should do home renovations, but do you do condos, like high-rise buildings? Do you work in those?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So we regularly work in condos and high-rise buildings and apartments. Some of the times it can take a little extra effort in terms of different codes in the condo for fire proofing, which Sean could get into, and just approvals from your board that we can actually be in there. If, for instance, if we need to create a completely barrier-free shower, we may need to actually cut out a portion of the floor to make sure it's actually flush. So we could do that, or there's more simple ones that we could do as well. One thing I don't think I mentioned in the presentation is, and we do general renovations, you name it. The only aspect of accessibility is that there's just this extra thought and customization for you, especially if you're aging in place. We do shower conversions, which has been pretty great for condos, because it's a very simple process. They're usually done in just a couple of days. So we come in and we can take everything out, and then it is a prefabricated shower or tub enclosure. So we can put that in very quickly, again, just a few days, and add grab bars or built-in benches if that's needed as well. And those are eligible for these tax credits too, but definitely great for being in condos and high rises. The only thing to note is that there is just a little bit of a lip to get over, but they're really great step-in showers.
Okay. Next question. Do you do free estimates? Do you offer various options for different renovations for aging in place from minimal, gradual to super supreme maximum?
Great question.
Yeah,
Love it.
absolutely. Really good question. And that's something that we usually start with a phone call. So phone calls certainly don't cost anything to talk to us. And what we can normally do is start to say, okay, this is what something like that typically costs, and start with budget. If that tends to make sense with your situation, we'll happily come out. Where we normally start to charge. So obviously I would love to come and visit you at no charge. If we're looking at something basic like a bathroom, we don't charge for our estimates. Where it starts to, we start to have to charge is when we're doing design work. So if we're designing a elevator shaft, or we're designing a very custom space within, it's worth its weight in gold to have a custom plan, because A, you're going to know what you're going to get and you're going to own those plans. And B, if it's something that requires a building permit, I always think get that done ahead of time, because you're going to have to do it eventually in the end anyway. So if you have that, it helps with the planning and more realistically what can be done, as well as the financial planning, and it will be something that you may need in the end. So short answer is yes, we do free estimates, and the long answer is if it's extensive, then we start to talk about design.
And we can do gradual plans as well, which was part of that question. So if something where you want to start simply, and then move on to something that's a little more specific to your needs as you get older, absolutely. We've done many things like that. And just in the example of, blocking behind walls in a bathroom makes a big difference. But if we don't do that, we also have the proper anchors and studs Sean mentioned that can be done without having anything behind, using a different framework. Yeah. Hopefully that answers the question.
Okay. Does the work you do allow you, well, you've already answered this one. The expense cost to be used for home accessibility, tax credit, income taxes, whatever. That's why I'm here, to answer the tax questions, okay? Because that's
perfect.
So I would suggest, if you are interested in finding out if any of these expenses do qualify, that you actually go to the website, the Canada.ca website, for those particular ones, because they are very particular about what the criteria are. So check them out. But for what these guys are talking about, Kyla and Sean, what they're talking about, most of them would qualify for the eligible person. If, for the home accessibility tax credit, and as Kyla mentioned, you can double dip the medical expense tax credit and home accessibility. The same expenses can be used for both. So that I would strongly urge you to go. Sorry, a question popped up, so it moved my my screen on me. I strongly urge you to go and look at the websites to make sure that it does all qualify for you. Payment option.
I just want to share that we did have a client that did the tax credits and did I think it was like a triple dip on some, and it was a shower conversion, but it was almost completely covered in the end. So
when you think about the taxes you get back, so the disability tax credit is a standalone, has absolutely nothing to do with renovations or anything like that. It's just you as the individual, you qualify. It's the other two where your expenses would come in. So home accessibility and the medical expense tax credit. So triple dipping, you're always going to get the DTC if you got it.
Sorry. I meant that, with the multi-generational one as well. But no, absolutely.
The multi-generational one, you cannot claim under medical expense as well. Okay. It is a unique thing unto itself.
Okay.
So just, but you can use some of those expenses if it qualifies for that, but you can only claim it in one place. Okay. Excuse me, sorry. Payment options, credit card, payment plan. give you my left kidney.
That's what usually people think about with renovations. So we are working on getting payment options in terms of financing. We have not got a company that's working directly with us yet. We can certainly refer you to financing companies, or if there's any supporting documents you need for your bank, we'd be happy to help you with those documents. But unfortunately for credit cards, just because of the fees, we don't generally take credit cards. We would have to pass on the fees, and especially as you get into larger expense renovations, it certainly starts to add up those fees. It's not usually worth it if you're the one using a card.
Okay.
Well, we do accept it. It's just the fees can be crazy. But yeah, and then so when we meet with a client, Sean lays out a full payment process. So it's usually if it's a bigger renovation, it's all laid out in our contract. Our quotes and our contracts are very thorough. We don't just write a number on a napkin. Like, things are really broken down because we want to be as transparent as possible. And then so as we reach certain milestones in the renovation, that would be associated with a payment. So it gets broken up a bit throughout, but that's all agreed upon in advance, and it's set up with our clients individually.
Okay, good. The next question, I'm not going to ask you to answer it because it would be very, very long. It says, can you explain the overall renovation process?
Oh.
So Sean, quiet. No, don't even go there, because I know you probably got a 15-minute response to that one. All I can say is it depends on what you're doing. So that would be a very long question to answer because it's too general. Next one, sorry to whoever asked that. Can you do gradual plans where you work? Yes, you mentioned that you would be able to do gradual plans. So you start with the necessities right now, and then later on we'll think about what's going on. So that will make it more fiscally manageable as well. Excuse me. Someone has asked, do you offer your services in French? They're unilingual French. Do you
Unfortunately, we have lead carpenters that speak French, and we can pair them up with you specifically. But in terms of our contracts and working with Sean or I, ce n'est pas très bon. Je prends les cours, mais je suis très lentement. But we're trying. We're trying to get there too. But we do have carpenters that do speak French.
Just a comment, not necessarily for you guys, it's more for NAFR. Unfortunately, focus on accessibility, which is what you guys are all about, BuildAble. And this isn't what they were expecting. They were looking at someone who can focus on aging in place, so probably more getting services in and all that sort of stuff, which that's something for NAFR to think about. So Carmen, thank you very much for that. And if you want to flip an email, Carmen, to the National Association of Federal Retirees Ottawa branch, making that observation that you've just made, because I'm going to forget by the time I log off, then that will be great. Antoine, he might remember. So, but it's
I can also, just when we were planning this out, and I think that's really great feedback for us. A lot of stuff that we've heard back is that there's still a lot of stigma when we talk about the aging in place process. So we like to talk about it as a lifespan, universal design. So all of these accessible renovations work with older adults and for aging in place. It's just that it can extend for every age and ability. That's the whole theory behind it. So, but that's really great feedback. So thank you.
Yeah, it is. Somebody else said, love the concept, aging at home. We did renovations for husband and ALS, did not get the home care. How would you advocate for this situation? It's, yeah, you get a lot of people beside you. You go and you storm, Parliament Hill, and basically that's what you're going to have to do.
Yeah, and we have advocated for that because, like you're saying, we can make the space as accessible and beautiful as you want, but if you need care on top of that, that's a really key part of staying in your home. So, I mean, it's changed from CCAC to the LIN to now I think it's Ontario at home. And there are applications you can do for free services through the government, but it's very limited. And then, of course, there's private home care agencies as well that you can hire to come in to supplement that care. And then the other aspect in terms of your question of how we advocate for those situations, we've gone out to national home care conferences to discuss policy and how the need for accessible home renovations needs to be linked with home care, as well as providing supports for caregivers. So it's a touchy spot for us to fully understand.
Yeah. Is there a bathtub you'd recommend that is easy to climb in and out of? I find most models are quite tall.
That is a really interesting question. So most of the time we're in the business of taking out bathtubs, but just recently we were working with somebody who is still quite mobile, although we're approaching retirement age. But so we found a low threshold bathtub. I think it was 13 inches, which is in terms of bathtub, very, very low. So she was also a shorter person, so it made it a lot easier for her to get in and out, but she still really enjoyed having a bath.
Okay. Your thoughts on stair lifts? You know, the
Absolutely.
Goes up and down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Part of the process, for
Okay.
sure. There's a couple of great stair lift companies in Ottawa, and we'd be happy to refer them to you. My background as an elevating devices mechanic, I get really excited about stair lifts. So, but it is good. That's one of those tools that we would recommend, although we don't install them ourselves, we would recommend for if we were visiting you, if we were doing work upstairs, or if you needed to get upstairs, it's one of those tools we could walk you through, and we would recommend considering in the future just to be able to access your home versus that living room bedroom situation as we talked about when it's practical and possible.
Yeah, and also great too, if you're thinking ahead, if you have your laundry in the basement, having a stair lift going down there where you can send your laundry in advance because it's remote control and then come back up for you is great because you don't want to be carrying big baskets down and then head over heels. Another just quick point in terms of financing or financials, elevators, stair lifts, lifts in general, they are 0 rated items. So there's no tax on those.
Okay.
Bonus.
on platform lifts, not on
Platform lifts.
Platform lifts.
Platform lifts.
Yep.
Okay. You sort of touched on this. What is the cost of doing an initial planning session for long-term needs? So this would be more your design stage, I guess.
What we would normally recommend is either speak with us on the phone. We can probably give you some pretty good budgets right off the bat. Otherwise, for us to come out and have a look without doing anything formal, again, we can continue that conversation in person. We don't do anything specifically where we'll write out an actual renovation plan for you. It really is the way we approach it is just in conversation, and we can give you some budgets at the time.
Okay. Somebody said, I missed the beginning. Will the presentation be shared? Yes, it has been taped, so it will be available on the branch website, I believe. She says, hopefully. Do you do small jobs like adding a couple of grab bars, or do you just like to do the big stuff?
We generally just do the big stuff. We had been doing that service, and it was certainly something we felt very strongly about. But the mobilization for it was quite difficult. So if you need something like a grab bar, we'd be very happy to refer a couple great companies that we know would do the same quality of work. We typically stick to the renovation. Okay.
Do you know about the Better Homes Ottawa Loans program and if it still exists?
I believe it does, yes. So if you go to the City of Ottawa's website, you can just put in Better Homes Ottawa, and it gives you the exact breakdown of what would be applicable and what are the eligibility requirements for that.
Okay. I've seen friends downsize and move to lower maintenance places such as condos, but in fact, often the new space does not include accessibility features and eventually move into retirement residence. Oh, it's just a statement, it's not a question. Becomes inevitable. Average cost then becomes $4,500 to $6,000 a month. Yes, it is. So whether you get someone in like BuildAble to renovate your own home to make you so you can stay there, you do have to be careful about where you're going.
Yeah, the cost for retirement homes can be pretty excessive with not a lot of services. So yeah, if you sit down with your financial planner to look through this, you can see over the long term investing in your house, or if you move to a condo and invest there even, can make such a huge difference in terms. And if you need the home care to come in, I know it can be a challenge, but even sometimes for some of our clients that have worked this out, the home care and the renovations end up being cheaper in the long term, over staying in a retirement home for years.
Well, when you think about it, just living in a retirement home for 1 year can be $60,000 to $70,000.
I know. And usually that's just the room.
Yeah, and just the room. Well, room and food and care and stuff like that.
Yeah, depending on, yeah.
So my question, do you think that aging in place can replace the step of long-term care or at least independent retirement home? Well, that, yeah, grab your crystal ball on that one.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. It just it depends on what you may be living with, but aging in place, absolutely. In terms of replacing that retirement home phase, long-term care is usually when things have progressed a lot, and this is funded by the government to a degree. And usually you may be in a room with multiple others. It's almost more like a hospital setting in some of the long-term care homes. But yes, it can definitely be a much better option. And especially in terms of fall prevention, if those mobility supports are in place, because our statistics in Canada show that if seniors do have a fall and end up in hospital, almost 50% will not go back home and they'll end up going into long-term care. So if we can prevent that fall from happening in the first place, so that theory of I'm not there yet, it's that proactive planning. And it's not necessarily always grab bars. It might be steps, it might be throw rugs, but it definitely can make a huge difference in preventing you from going to long-term care way before you should.
Okay. Linda has in the Q&A, Linda, who works with the Ottawa branch, has posted a link to betterhomesottawa.ca, and she has also posted a link to where this webinar will be found on the branch website. Last question. It's actually worded kind of funny. Sounds like they want a date. What's your phone number? But I'll put it, can you provide your contact information?
Yes, so we can share this afterwards as well, but it's 613-402-5613. That's our phone number. You can visit our website at buildable.ca or shoot us an email as well. It's either Kyla, Kyla, or Sean, Sean, the Irish way, he'll reinforce, at buildable.ca as well.
Okay.
Oh, wonderful.
Oh, and somebody's just saying, thank you so much. I really enjoyed hearing about the information. And
thank you.
And also Linda has also said that she will send out contact info. There we go. Trying to put info and for together. BuildAble in the follow-up email that comes out to the people who registered for this particular event.
Oh, I should also mention, if this is okay, Linda said it might be okay to mention, last year we hosted the Adaptive Living Expo, and it was a huge turnout. So we're doing it again this year, partnered with 2 other agencies. It's going to be kind of a big super show and some para sports, but there'll be lots of information there, other renovators, inclusive living options, and so much more, home care agencies, where there was a few questions about, and that'll be held May 31st. So Saturday, May 31st, at Carleton University. So it should be a good day, and it's going to be free to attend. So you can come out, listen to presentations, meet with vendors, see us, say hi, and yeah, hope you can make it. And thanks so much for having us here today. Really appreciate it.
Well, and thank you for coming, and thank everybody who's in attendance here. They're starting to drop off because it's like, oh, it's after 11. So thank everybody for attending today's webinar, and thank you very much, Kyla, Sean, for the very, very informative presentation. And I love some of those designs are really, really great too, by the way. So look out for the follow-up email that'll contain the recording for today's session or information on it, as well as more information on BuildAble itself. So there'll be contact information, I'm guessing, there. And remember, you can invite non-members to attend the webinars and try out as a guest. See, we're trying to hook you in. To register for upcoming webinars, please visit the Ottawa branch website at NAFR Ottawa, NAFR Ottawa.com. So thank you, everybody. And see you at the next webinar, whenever that might be. And